Keep your eyes closed. No, I'm not gonna keep my eyes closed. The whisper again.
You should probably open your eyes if you haven't already. It's pretty much impossible to solve otherwise. And there is a solution, by the way.
Activate the shields. Right, where the hell do we activate the shields? Truth. Okay. Right, so we go there and we tell the truth rather than faking it. Feels a bit on the nose, but I like the idea. Blind, panicking. But 5 months?
Like I said, I was getting concerned. First off, he's never been this explicit in his work about exactly what he's thinking. So where's that coming from? But then even weirder, his work has potentially stopped being an outlet for him. Not like he's having trouble iterating on ideas, but he literally just can't think of new ideas anymore. And in person, he was being a lot more distant than usual. Like, you know how sometimes a person will just deflect anything that you say in order to keep themselves disconnected all the time? It was that kind of thing. Here was the point in my relationship with Coda where I really started to wonder if he needed my help in some way. His games are going to get more desperate from here on out. After this game, it's almost 6 months before he finishes something new.
It's longer and longer to make these games, and so short. Really, what was that game? Creative way to say that I'm feeling uncreative? Engine. And how much of that is the game engine? Remember what we talked about early on? How Source made blocky corridor games? This is pretty much as far from it as you're gonna get. I mean, obviously at this point engine pretty much represents imagination and creativity more so than the actual game engine, but I thought it was an interesting word to use. And while this, I'd like to say that this feels more creative than...
If the last game featured Coda talking explicitly about his creative frustrations, this one turns it up to 11. Now, put yourself in my shoes playing this. Here's a friend whose work is exhibiting signs of struggle, frustration, anxiety, depression, even. And yet still he keeps making games. He keeps throwing himself into the grinder even when he clearly doesn't have the energy for it anymore. Why? What is it for?
Should note, by the way, that I did pick the B option for the last dialogue, and it did just say deal. Inevitability, I suppose. Right. So the puzzle. You think we're gonna get the door puzzle again? I think we very well might.
Because from my perspective at the time, and just what I knew of him, this was a result of how isolated he was. He was in his own little bubble, just sitting at his computer all day, not really showing these games to anyone, not releasing them onto the internet, and so he didn't have anyone outside of himself to connect with. He had no outlet to ground himself on.
Puzzle again.
You can't talk yourself out of loneliness. It doesn't work that way. You can't be the one writing both the questions and the answers. Then there's no movement. Then there's no circulation. If all of your anxieties are being channeled into your work, then if the work ever fails, you have no backup and you're just going to crash.
I knew it was going to be this puzzle again. Keeps talking to himself, presenting it as an option that he can finish. It's like the cleaning room all over again. He places a problem in front of himself that he knows he can solve, and then he solves it to get that solution of fixing a problem. But it's not enough. There has to be more to it. It can't be something so easy that there's nothing to it. That he himself designed. Be a placebo sense of accomplishment. Because there's really nothing to it. If you make your own problem and then solve it, that doesn't make you feel better.
Seeing this game at the time that he made it, it looked really unhealthy to me. I was watching him do this to himself, and I hated it. I hated seeing him so trapped. It's like, video games are not worth this amount of suffering. This is someone I really cared about, and I used to get so much joy out of seeing him create. For him to suddenly become angry and frustrated like this, it was the worst thing for me. I don't know. This is what I felt at the time. I don't know how else to explain it. I wanted it to stop more than anything. I had never felt so rotten. I needed more than I had ever needed anything for this to stop.
This is not healthy.
But it didn't stop. After finishing this one, Coda takes another 7 months and comes up with a new game.
I want to say that's the first person we've ever seen. The woman there. Crying. Not counting the block people. The woman actually seemed like a real person. The machine calls itself Coda. Hello, Coda.
And of course, it's the machine.
The machine has stopped. Okay. This is the first time in this game, period, as in not this personal Coda game, but all of the beginner's guide, that it actually feels like I have a serious choice. If the machine represents imagination, then everything the machine has created are all the games. In the end, it's better to destroy the games than destroy Coda himself and his imagination. We're back here. Gun from the Whisper game. Jesus.
So now the work is becoming self-destructive. And I'll tell you, at the time that I first played this game, shortly after he made it, here's what I'm thinking to myself. I'm thinking that Code is stuck in his own head, and that it's having a very negative effect on him, and that all he needs to do is just start showing his work to people, to get some actual feedback on his games. It might get him out of isolation. And so, as I'm thinking this, I realize that I could be the one to initiate it. Because it would never occur to Coda to start actively soliciting feedback, so what if I did it for him? If he could see the difference it would make to have more actual conversations with other human beings, would that bring him out of his mental spiral? Would it give him confidence in himself? Would it bring meaning back into his work? So I started showing Coda's work to people. I took this one, and the islands which you just played, the theater, the notes, the house cleaning game, and some of the prison escape games. I brought them to people that I knew and trusted. I asked their opinions. And the great part is that they really loved his games. You know, the point of it all was just to give him some external reference point, but they genuinely loved his work. There was nothing for him to be afraid of.
So we go to the machine again. Machine be fixed. Can't fire at the machine, but I have no choice. I'm trying to press other buttons. The game is not letting me aim away. No other buttons working. So do we just stand here? Not shoot? Clearly we've been placed in this position, but we have no choice. You reach this point in the game where to do something to go further would be to betray what you really want to do, but you have no option.
Can you see why I felt like this was the right thing to do? Because it's the thing that I always feel like I need, to be told that my work is good, that I am good. When someone really connects with a thing that I've made, when they see themselves purely in my work, there's nothing that feels better. And I got to give that very same feeling to my friend. I did something, I really felt like I'd done something good, like I was a good person. I felt like there was a friend who was in trouble and was unhappy and maybe didn't like themselves, and I could fix it. If I could give him this gift, maybe I could fix the problem. When they told me how much they enjoyed his games, it was the best feeling. It was the absolute best feeling. It made me feel so happy.
There's a bot coming.
Beautifully, beautifully happy.